April the 2nd, 2019. Guys, a quick video on Mount Popo down in Mexico. Now, it has erupted 200 times in the last 24 hours. Do you remember, guys, for the last 3 or 4 years, when I talked about grand solar minimum, not global warming, that they had went back and looked at the ice cores and things like that during these grand solar minimums and these mini ice ages? Every time they were associated with extreme volcanic activity, and they could tell by the ice cores and other things. And what that tells you is what I've said for a long time. During grand solar minimum, our shields are weak, and when we are bombarded by anything, solar streams, anything that you could think of, gamma ray burst or whatever it is, that energy is being transferred into the earth. Now, when you are dealing with a 200 times eruption in 24 hours of the major North American volcano, you have to be very careful. It says the most dangerous volcano in Mexico just erupted 200 times in a 24-hour period. But there has been an almost total blackout about this in the U.S. media. Authorities are saying the odds of more volcanic activity at Mount Popo are medium to high, and if a full-blown, Plinian eruption were to occur, it would be the worst natural disaster in the modern history of North America. Approximately 26 million people live within 60 miles of Mount Popo's crater. And so what they're talking about, the potential for death and destruction on a scale that is difficult to imagine. In ancient times, Mount Popo buried entire Aztec cities in superheated mud. But then it went to sleep for about 1,000 years. Unfortunately for us, it says it's starting to wake up again in the 1990s, and now this is the most active that we have seen it ever since the volcano originally reawakened. Why? Our shields are weak, grand solar minimum, energy is transferred into the core of the earth. Where are our magma layers? In the core and in the upper cores of the earth, guys. All that energy, every time we see this, you start going into earthquakes and volcanoes. The report goes on to say that what we have witnessed over the last several days has been nothing short of stunning. According to a British news source, a level 3 yellow alert was put into effect after 200 eruptions were recorded again in 24 hours. Mount Popo, just 35 miles from Mexico City and 20 miles from Puebla, sent ash and plumes of smoke more than 1.5 miles high. Mexico's National Center for Disaster Prevention has warned people to keep away from Popo after the 200 eruptions. A level 3 again, yellow alert. At this point, a 7.5-mile security radius has been established around the volcano. And if this thing continues to get worse, authorities will be forced to begin large-scale evacuations. Guys, these are planetary changing events. Now, we don't know what will happen, but you've heard me talk about Ezekiel 3 many times. A watchman's job is to let the people know about what the potential dangers are. If he doesn't, their blood is on his hand. Study it if you haven't. It says, hopefully there will be enough warning before a Plinian eruption occurs, because several towns could be completely buried by superheated mud traveling at 60 miles an hour. You wouldn't have time to get out of the way. That's just superheated mud, guys. But when you're talking about a pyroclastic flow, it can travel at 500 miles an hour at over 500 to 600 degrees. It says, while not every Plinian-sized eruption is alike in ferocity, all the volcanologists I spoke with, and this is the article, provided grave details about Popo's sheer devastation. First, you would see 1,000-degree lahars. You see these great mudslides going down the river with logs and everything else, and pyroclastic flows speeding down at 60 miles per hour. Guys, I'm not sure about that information right there, but the pyroclastic flows can travel much faster than that. But even at 60 miles per hour, it says no human on the entire planet can run that fast. If people are able to get to their vehicles in time, they would have a chance. But in reality, the highways would quickly become completely clogged as thousands of escaping vehicles all converge at the same time. We've seen it with hurricanes, guys. Mexico City would be out of range for the tsunami of superheated mud, but the truth is that the volcanic ash would kill far more people. Even just breathing in the volcanic ash could potentially be a death sentence. Not only that, again, when you're dealing with grand solar minimum, and they've always talked about these major volcanic events that they could see from the ash layer in the ice samples, that makes global cooling even worse because you have the ash layer in the upper atmosphere shielding the sun. So they work hand in hand to bring about this global cooling in these mini ice ages. It says the real threat, of course, begins after the lava halts. It says if the wind blew in Mexico City's direction, a city-sized cloud of ash 20 centimeters thick would descend upon the buildings, dismantling roadways, shutting down airports, and the metro line. Breathing it could kill you. And that's just the first day. After that, seeping ash would clog Mexico City's drainage lines, poisoning its water supplies, and ceasing electricity transmission being short-circuiting. It says with food supplies cut off and no electricity, the dense metropolis would probably resemble something like the World Trade Center the night of September the 11th, except with 3 times as many people attempting to flee, all under the veil of an ash-blackened sky. Ultimately, we are talking about an event that would mean the end of the modern nation of Mexico as we know it today, and this is the most active that Mount Popo has been in any of our lifetimes. Grand solar minimum, not just one of the solar minimums in the 11.8-year cycle. A grand solar minimum. If you've paid attention to my videos for the last 3 or 4 years, I've shown you the charts, guys, where it is decreasing, the solar activity year after year. It says, meanwhile, a volcano in Washington State is starting to vent steam and gas. I bet you hadn't heard about that either. It's Mount Baker, 31 miles due east of Bellingham, Washington. And all throughout the month of March, steam and gas has been pouring out of that volcano. Again, grand solar minimum, weak shields. It goes into the core. The state's quartet of the potentially eruptive peaks are all part of the Cascade Mountain Range, and the northernmost is Mount Baker, which is located in Whatcom County, 31 miles east of Bellingham. And guys, remember at the first we talked about a media blackout. On March 4th, the 10,781-foot tall volcano began producing a number of steam plumes known as fumaroles. The expulsions have continued throughout the month since then, and several have been highly visible from many miles away and widely captured in photographs and cell phone videos. Guys, they're not letting us see a lot of this information. Those of you that are familiar with my work, this goes on from the scientists, know that I am much more concerned about Mount Rainier, and when that volcano starts venting steam and gas, I am likely to really start freaking out. But Mount Baker is a very serious threat, too, because of the proximity to human population. Now, they've talked about Mount Rainier for a long time. One of my good friends, as I was coming out of college, had a 100-acre ranch on Mount Rainier, guys. Beautiful area, but it's deadly, just like Mount St. Helens. It says Mount Baker last erupted in 1843, but in several recent publications, the U.S. Geological Survey has maintained that Washington State's third highest peak continues to present a serious threat to the frequency of its eruptive history and the volcano's proximity, again, to the population. He says, we are seeing a rise in seismic activity all along the Ring of Fire. And as he had frequently warned, North America will not be immune from what is taking place. And guys, I've said for years, watch Cascadia, because this is where all of these volcanoes in North America, in the U.S., are located. Now, Popo's down in Mexico. It says the entire west coast lies directly along the Ring of Fire, and seismologists assure us that it's just a matter of time before we witness absolutely massive natural disasters. Again, Cascadia drops, and you see very large tsunamis. They've been recorded hundreds of feet high in the past. And with all of this shaking, he said, that is currently going on, the truth is that time may be running out a lot more quickly than many of us have been anticipating. Why? Guys, if you listen to my channel, you have been anticipating it, because I've said this would lead to increased earthquakes and increased volcanic activity. Every grand solar minimum is marked by the increased volcanic activity that increases the cooling, because the ash blocks the sun. Guys, not a fear-mongering video, just facts. That's my job. Guys, check out the video that I'm going to put up here from one of the last major eruptions this year. It's a heads up. Be safe.